Why are you still here? You still want to stick around for more punishment, do you? Okay then, let's continue. So now that we know how to store our data, we're just going to go through the whole create user process again and just make sure we understand what's going on. So we click on sign up and we're going to do our usual I'm going to click sign up, and of course we're going to come into the submit function here on the index on this page, and then we're just going to wait to see what comes back from here. So let's click continue, and we come into the create function that comes from our routing. So we're going to have this key, we're going to check to see what exists in the database. We're not going to throw any errors. Remember, if we throw an error, it's going to get caught by the initial API route, which is, let me just find it for you. Okay, index here, and then it goes into the API, I believe, and any errors that are caught come into here and then get sent back to the client, and that's just printed on top of the page. So anyway, let's continue. So we then, if there is no username with that email already and no username, then we create an encrypted password using bcrypt. You can go and Google what bcrypt is, and we have a salt of 5, which is kind of weak, I guess, but hey. So we create this encrypted password. It looks like this. Let me just increase the font size a little bit for you guys. And then we have this user record, which will be stored inside of our data store in here. Of course, it's empty right now. So encrypted password looks like that. Then we have this user record, which contains the email and no followers, the password and the username. And then we're going to actually insert it into the database using upsert. Again, I would probably use an insert. So once that happens, we're going to go here, we'll click refresh, and we can see that we have this data, right? Brilliant. And we also remember that's encrypted password. And then of course we, for safety reasons, we want to actually delete this in memory, so it's not hanging about in RAM, whatever that is. So I'm going to click and delete user record, and we can see that it's null, undefined. And then we're going to mint token. So mint token, let's just step into it. It's going to sign a JSON Web Token with this payload, token secret, and then that sends that token over to wherever it's going to be used, and then we can decrypt it to get the username later on. TWT, I reckon I would just go and Google what that is and how it works. It works quite nicely. So that's going to mint as a token. Okay, so then we have a token is like this, and that contains all information. And then we're just going to create this, so we see this user record now has a token on there. And I'm not really sure why he does that, but he does it anyway. So we've got this user record that's going to be returned. Right, so that's going to assign this user record to the result from this function, and then that's going to be handled over here. So in our sapper file now, we have a response back from this API post to the users here, and of course we're going to have a response now, and the user is going to have this information, and it contains the token and all this stuff. And the session is actually something that's used in Sapper, where it stores the session information, and it has like an ID, and then we can assign data to it, which is then can be reread across page refreshes. So it does get a little bit complicated, and there's a bit of magic going on, unfortunately, but you know, that's the nature of these things. So if we go to our Sapper server file, which I haven't really talked about too much, all the magic seems to happen with the session is this thing called Sapper middleware, and this session here gets populated on the client. So there's a Svelte store, and you can Google that. Basically, there's special writable stores that Sapper uses that can be hydrated, which means that on like server-side rendering, the page loads on the client, and then the session data is available in this session object. So, so when we are doing this in a register function here, when we're assigning the session user, then this actual user object will be available on the client. That's what that's doing. So anyway, we're the session at the moment won't be populated on the client because we're creating it at this point here. So what we're doing is we're actually the response is going to contain the user information, and I'll show you how that's handled on the client, assuming I put the breakpoint in correctly. Yes, it's going to be here on index svelte register. Right. So let's just fire off this then. Okay, so what's happened here is that because I was slow here, I think it's timed out on the debugging, which sometimes can happen if you're a bit slow. Because I'm explaining everything, it kind of times out, failed to fetch. So that's probably a timeout on their register, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the data, and I'm going to just skip the breakpoints on the server side, or go through them quickly so that it will get the response back here, and I can show you how the session's set. So I'll just go here and delete this. And what we'll do is, now that because the data's not there anymore, then we'll just click on sign up again, and it's going to come into here. I'm just going to press F8, skip this, and I'm going to skip this. I'll just check if it works. Yeah, it's going to get there. Yep, so that's fine. So then on the client, we see we've got a response now. It's not timed out. So response, there's no errors, of course, and we can see that we have the user object here with the token. And what we do is we assign the session. Now the session here is a writable store. If you look up, okay, so we're getting the stores, and session is a special store that's populated on page refreshes from the client with the express session. It's used as middleware. So I'll just show you here. So look, express session, and that does a lot of the magic. And this stuff I don't fully understand yet, but this is, trust me, it works. So let's get back to the code. Right, so we're now assigned the response to user, and this session object is used in the nav up here. So if we just open up the nav file, we can see that there's like if session user, we have this will look different. It'll say basically your name and stuff like that if you're logged in or not. So that's kind of how that works. So let's just close this, and we'll click the session user, and we'll go to this page here. Right. Okay, so now you can see that session is available, but it's kind of hard to debug Svelte sometimes. Let me just see if I can get access to that object. Alright, so we can get access to the object. That's pretty nice. So we can see that data here. Brilliant, but we can't see it if we highlight it for some reason or not. I guess Chrome DevTools will kind of still get updated to work with Svelte at some point, maybe improve. So, right, so let me think. So let's just click continue here. Right, so we can see now that we have the session available with this information here. Okay, so I think that is enough for this video. The next video I'll cover on how the actual session works across page refreshes, and we'll talk about security as well. Sound good? Alright, see you soon.